Hey there, Pat Strubbe, founder of Preservation Specialists. This month, I'm going to take a break from commenting on the current economy and markets. Instead, I thought I'd share some good news. I know this makes me a little weird. Doesn't it seem like 99% of the news is bad? Of course, the classic line is, if it bleeds, it leads. The media knows that we can't help but notice bad news, so it pays them well to take advantage of this. Well, this month, let's take a break from all of that and focus on some good news. This month's video is inspired by two books I've read over the past few years. Leave Me Alone and I'll Make You Rich is the first, and Superabundance is the second. The bottom line is these two books have given me a far greater appreciation for how blessed we are to be alive today and to be living here in America. Bear with me as we take a quick stroll through some economic history. Let's start with some of my favorite quotes from the books. The first one, quote, measured in 2011 US dollars, Angus Madison and the team of economists found that the global income per person per day in the reign of Caesar Augustus was $2 per day. That's also where it stood 1,000 years later when William the Conqueror set sail to claim the crown of England. Another 800 years later, in 1800, the average daily income was just $2.80. So over 18 centuries that separated Augustus and the presidency of Thomas Jefferson, the per-day daily income rose by less than 40%. Then suddenly everything changed. Between 1800 and 1900, the global production per person per day doubled. Income grew by more than twice as much in one century than over the 18 previous combined. And then by 2016, that number had gone up to $40 a day. In the United States, it was $145, and in Africa, the world's poorest continent, $13 a day. In other words, global and American standards of living rose by 14 and 24% over the course of the last 2 centuries, unquote. Both of these books bring to light just how hard life was only a couple hundred years ago. Most of life was still just about survival. Things like education were considered a luxury. So what gets credit for such massive improvements around the world? Quote, human liberty, and not the machinery of coercion or investment or even science by itself, is what made for a great enrichment from 1800 to the present. The enrichment was really, really great, 3,000% per person great, unquote. Basically, these improvements boil down to freedom. Freedom from government control, freedom to work, to invent, and to innovate. The authors go on to make a bold statement. The proverbial phrase, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, made sense in the zero-sum world before the Great Enrichment, but it's silly now. Nearly 90% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty as late as 1820. The latest assessment estimates the share of the world's in poverty fell below 8% in 2020, unquote. And the improvements continue over more recent periods as well. The authors in Superabundance introduce an idea they call time prices. Essentially, how long does it take each of us to have to work to be able to buy a product? They report that if you look at blue-collar workers, over the last 100 years, the average time price of 40 commodities they chose fell by 96%. And over those same 100 years, the average time price of 42 food items fell by 91%. So over the last 100 years, even with all of the inflation we've seen driving prices up, we can buy food with 1/10 of the work that it required a century ago. Simply amazing. For the sake of time, I'll share some more facts that I found really encouraging. In 1960, it was estimated that half of the world population lived in extreme poverty, and that number, as we mentioned earlier, is below 8% now. Another one, the share of people in the world with water from a clean water source in 1980 was 58%. In 2015, it was all the way up to 88%. How about this? The proportion of girls of primary school age enrolled in school rose from 65% in 1970 all the way up to 90% in 2015. Those are just a few of the encouraging facts shared in these books. Do we still have problems? Of course we do. But let's not let the bad news get us depressed. Let's be thankful for the improvements that we've made and for what we have. It's my hope this brings you some good cheer and encouragement, and the next time someone talks about how depressing the news is, maybe you can share some good news with them as well.